I think this is a great point to do the 6K review because I think when I went into my first 600-mile service, the dealership told me once I did that service, I didn't have to come back until 6,000 miles or something like that. From my understanding, I think they only really check like the chain. I think they only check like the chain slack and do an oil change and make sure there's not a lot of like metal scrappings in your motor, and hopefully the bike was broken properly. So figure this is a great point to kind of put my thoughts and feelings in this bike. 6,000 miles, I think that's pretty good to say. That's a pretty good point to know what the bike gives you, what it can do, what it can't. I'm going to be reading off my phone on some of my notes, so I'll try to keep it quick, and I'm going to have my backpack blocking out my license plate. First thing I want to talk about is I have done ECU flash. I have done all that stuff. I have stripped the fairings off. I have taken off the gas tank, took out the air box, did my own oil change. I've adjusted my own chain slack. I'm sure there's more to it, but I've done a lot of stuff to it. So the base ABS model, so it goes around $56.99 or something like that. You can do the non-ABS for I think $52.99, something like that. This is not the SE version. Let me show you guys my mileage real quick, actually. So as you can see there, yeah. So this is not the SE version. The SE version has a keyless system, as you can see here, and it has like a USB port right here. So I think you can get that for like another like $1,000 or $2,000. It's really up to you if you want to go that route. But for me, as a new rider, well, I didn't know jack about bikes and motorcycles, so I just went with the base model, cheapest version, ABS, because I heard it was safe. This version does still have the Kawasaki app phone Bluetooth connection to it, so you can do that. It's kind of like a rider's app to track like your miles, and I don't know if it tracks your top speed. I haven't used it in a while, but I have used it. It's quite easy to get into. It is a little tricky to get into, but once you do it, it's like, oh, okay. A slipper clutch and an assist clutch, or shifter, whatever. So basically what that really means is basically it's a little bit easier to shift or kind of get into the shifting point. And one important thing with that is I don't know if you can do that with any bike, but I'm sure you can, but it might be a little harder to do with other bikes. But with the slipper clutch, you can actually do like clutchless shifting. So if you know much about clutchless shifting, there's a point in time when you're about to like shift gears. There's actually a point in time where like the crank doesn't meet the tranny. So that's actually like the time where you can shift. But I can make a whole video on that more if people want to know about it. But that's not quick shifting though, just so you guys know. So it's not quick shifting, and if you're not too aware of it, it is kind of hard to do. So it's a parallel twin 180 crank motor, 451cc. Kawasaki called it a Ninja 500, but it's a 451cc, hence the name of my user on my YouTube. The bike makes 51 horsepower at 10k RPM, which is basically right at the max. But if you dyno it, if you watch dynos on the dyno charts on it, it makes about 49 horsepower to the wheel. I do have mine's flash tuned, ECU flash, so I think mine's making about 56, 57. If you want to see more videos, I have more other videos on like an ECU flash, reviews on it, how it feels, is it worth, blah blah blah. Torque is about 31 to 32 foot-pounds of torque at about 7.5k RPMs. You can actually really feel that torque. Big difference for the Ninja 400. Seat height, the seat height starts at 30.9 inches. They do have like ergonomic seats where it's a little higher if you want it. I don't think it can go any lower, so you could lower the bike too if you want. But I'm 5'2", and I sit on this bike pretty good. I'm on the balls of my feet on both foot. One foot I could flat foot on one side. So fuel capacity is at 3.7 gallons, and it does have pretty good mileage per gallon. So I think it's like around like, it varies from like 45 to like 65. Sometimes I even see 70, but I don't know much about that stuff. I'm just going off of the speedo, and so as far as I know, before I got my ECU flash, now that I flashed my ECU, I do have to get more gas than usual. But before that, oh man, I was barely getting gas on this thing. Man, I was riding all day for like 2 days straight, not getting gas. Well, it depends on how far I went, but this bike really does all sorts of riding at will. So whether you want to rip on twisties or you're trying to cruise on a freeway or just, running errands or whatnot. This bike is really comfortable for that. The seat, the ergonomics, the riding triangle on this, it's really comfortable. So even the pegs, the footing of the pegs, it's really comfortable. I've sat on the ZX6R, I've sat on a ZX4RR, I sat on a Ninja 650, and its Ninja 650 is more like I don't even want to say sport touring. I almost want to say touring. That handlebar is like up here, bro. Like I'm telling you, it's just like up here. So it feels kind of weird. It's almost like you're on I don't know. It's just really too high up, I mean, which is fine. Some people like it that way, but for me, I kind of like a little balanced out sport touring riding triangle. So to me, this is the perfect kind of blend in both worlds. Kind of where you could kind of get a little aggressive if you want, and you could kind of just sit up and cruise if you want too. So it's great from my experience. I've read post forums and whatnot. It's great for really all riding sizes. Whether you're 5'11" and 280 pounds, or 6'2" and 180, or you're like me, like 5'2" and like 140, 150 pounds. Like it's really comfortable. It maneuvers around really well, really easily. U-turns are really easy, and it makes you just feel really confident on the bike, knowing that like it's not something heavy that you kind of really have to throw around. So you can watch my videos if you want. I do a lot of like all sorts of kind of riding. So when I first got the bike, I did like the way it looked, and then I started not liking the way it looked. But as time went on, the bike really grew on me, and I think it's because I put this windscreen on here. I'll link that in the description or the comment, man. Every video somebody asks about that windscreen, so I guess that's like I'm like the first person to throw this on here. So it's from AliExpress, but I'll put a little link on it. I will say it does change the whole demeanor of the bike. It looks angrier, it looks meaner, looks slicker, it looks bigger too. The looks of it was modeled after the H2, so I'm sure you guys know what the H2 is, but it is kind of modeled after the H2, which is really nice. At first, I didn't really like this little pointy part right here, but like I said, man, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it started growing on me. Next thing you know, I started slapping stickers on here, and everything just kind of came together overall. Because it was kind of the successor of the Ninja 400, it's got all the exhaust for it. So whatever exhaust you could find in Ninja 400, you could slap on a Ninja 500. I do have a full toast exhaust system on here, and I can confirm that on the back of it, it does say 400 EX. So it was made for the Ninja 400, and it fits the Ninja 500 just fine. You could get any exhaust system that was made for the 400, slip on, full, fit on just fine. My personal favorite exhausts for these bikes are the full toast, the Yoshimura, the SC Project, and the Austin Racing. So those are kind of my personal preference. So if you ask me what exhaust would I recommend, one of those four. If it's just a slip-on, the Yoshimura is kind of expensive, but you have the money for it. I do think that is one of the better looking slip-ons. One thing I do hate about the exhaust systems though is I hate that it kind of extends all the way out. That's kind of why I like the full toast. It kind of sits under the bellies. Yeah, if you ask me what exhaust I'd recommend, those four are the ones I'd recommend. So I wasn't a big fan of the mirrors and the front the windscreens. So I did get a AliExpress windscreen. I do run stealth mirrors. I didn't like the how the mirrors kind of like went out like that. It just kind of seemed a little too woogly, So I do like that it gives a little meaner look with the stealth mirrors. Stealth mirrors though, you do have to play with the angles really well to kind of see behind you. So that's one thing to think about. Speed wise, torque wise, it's pretty fast. For a low displacement CC bike, it's pretty fast. Top speed wise, stock, you could probably get this thing to, like 118. You could probably get it. You could redline it, but you probably need a bigger downhill. But around 118 is where it starts to kind of get hard to kind of get over 118. I do have it full flash, and I have seen 130 on here before. What's nice about having this bike flash is now I can kind of get to the 120s. So overall, the bike is really light, and because of that, like I've said before, it leaves you really confident and really comfortable on the bike. Fortunately, I cannot lane split, lane filter, but if I could, this bike would be perfect for that. This bike is really, like I said, really agile, very nimble. One great thing about this bike is when I first got it, I started cornering pretty well on this bike right off the bat. Leaning, cornering, ripping through twisties. Obviously, I'm not some kind of like MotoGP racer, but you know, I do think for a beginner rider, I was able to learn a lot because I started on this bike. I do think this bike got me ready for a lot of crazier rides and whatnot, especially being a short guy. You know, as my short riders out there, you may know that our options are not a lot. So, and if we do want to go higher, we have to kind of be more careful. I am a new rider. I did start around early June or late May, somewhere around there. So I've gotten 6,000 miles in 4 months. That's pretty good. If I could go back, would I start on this bike? I definitely still would. I don't regret starting this bike at all. The speed did leave me wanting a little more, but once I flashed the ECU, put some TSC velocity stacks on there, it basically got to where I do want it to get to. One thing that I wish was there, I guess, is that like obviously it's a new bike, a new motorcycle. The fairings, it is the successor of the Ninja 400, but the fairings are not the same. You can start finding fairings on the Ninja 500 right now, but before this, there was like obviously it's a non-existent. You couldn't really find it. Now you can, and but I don't think they have like not much yet out. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I'm sure by the time if you get this bike next year, there should be more fairings for it. I think now they are starting to sell like different fairings, like the KRT version, and all that stuff for it. One thing I think I would definitely like a little different too is I think I would like the rear pegs to be a little more aggressive. It's kind of perfect for like the overall daily commuter, but for me, you know, I might just say it now. Maybe once I switch it, I might miss this, but I would like this to be a little bit more farther back, so more aggressive riding style. I just also want to say that throughout my 6K miles here, I've actually had no issues with this bike. No battery issues, no starting issues, no chain issues, no issues with the ignition. Never had to swap out anything to really like nothing crazy that like I had to throw it into maintenance. If anything, actually I never had anything, so very reliable, great on Kawasaki on that part. But yeah, this bike is just really comfortable, man. I'm chilling here, 37 miles per hour, just chilling, sitting up, you know, not uncomfortable at all, nothing to worry about, straight cruising, man. 6K miles off the bike, and let's just say I do it all again, and I probably will, to be honest. Now that I flashed my ECU and done all that stuff, I really don't have the itch to upgrade yet. Some people do, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty comfortable on this bike, and I see myself staying with this bike for quite a while. Mainly because I think this bike will keep me out of trouble. You know, I know you guys, if you guys watch my other videos to kind of get a good glimpse of how this bike rides, whether we're talking about freeway or low speed, the stuff that I'm already doing on here on a bike as a new year rider, let's just say I probably shouldn't upgrade yet for the sake of my own safety and others as well. So would I recommend this bike? I made a video on why the Ninja 500 is a great beginner bike, and I'd say it again, this bike is made for everybody, man. I don't care how big you are, how skinny you are, how short you are. If my 5'2" self can do this, I got a 27-inch inseam, that's really short. You guys can too. The reason why this Ninja 500 means so much to me is because when I first started riding, you know, we all know, right, the talk about sport bikes is the fact that it sits really high up, right? So as a short guy, and I'm sure all you shorties out there know the same feeling, you're scared, right? You want to ride sport bike. You don't want to be on a cruiser. You don't want to be on a, you know, on a Vulcan 650 or something. You want to be on a sport bike. I don't care how many cc's, how many horsepower, you just want to be on a sport bike. And so when I first started riding, I absolutely thought sport bikes was a no way for me. Like, I really thought that, like, like it was actually kind of depressing to think that, like, damn, I don't think I'd ever be able to ride a sport bike, you know, being how short I am. And that's why this bike means so much to me, because when I hopped on this bike, I've said it before, but this bike, it just felt like home to me, man. It's almost like it's got your back, bro. This bike has got your back. So this bike did for me what I thought was impossible. So hats off to Kawasaki for making this bike, and this is my 6K miles review on this bike. Thanks for watching. Got any questions, concerns? I like to say I've seen it all with this bike, from taking off the fairings, taking out the ECU, putting everything back together, putting different exhausts on here. I had a slip-on before this. Now I got full system with full headers and everything. Did it all myself. Never went to a shop. I did go to the shop for my 600-mile review. 600-mile service. But other than that, I've done it all. So if you got any questions, concerns, let me know. I might not know it, but I'll try to at least direct you guys to it. So thanks for watching, and you know, feel free to support me, subscribe, and that'll be that, boys, ladies.